Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're getting into a really tough story. A listener asked us to explore the case of Lily Florono. We'll be carefully looking at the details surrounding this tragedy.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. Our main source here is a pretty detailed transcript from the Inspector Genser YouTube channel. It lays out the events leading up to Lily's death.
Right.
And our goal really is to unpack what happened, look at the key moments, maybe see if there are wider issues involved, and just help you understand the impact of it all.
Okay, let's dive right in. The transcript starts actually with this quite moving scene. It's the morning of November 20th, 2010. Lily, who's just 2, is having breakfast with her grandpa, picking marshmallows out of her cereal, just being a happy little kid.
Simple joys, yeah.
Exactly. But then there's the sharp contrast because her mom, Lauren, is incredibly anxious. She's dreading the custody exchange later that day with Lily's father, Jeffrey.
And that contrast is, well, it's stark, isn't it? Lily's happy, innocent moment versus Lauren's deep worry. It's another handover. And even though it's routine on the surface, Lauren's clearly feeling a lot of dread.
And tragically, it seems Lily felt it too.
Yeah, it seems so.
The transcript describes her reaction, and it's just heartbreaking. She's crying, clinging to Lauren, begging her, please don't make me go.
Yeah.
This doesn't sound like, just a typical toddler fuss. It feels like real distress.
It really does. It makes you wonder how much young kids pick up on,
Yeah,
the tension, the environment.
definitely. And in that moment, Lauren tells Lily she promises her that one day she won't have to go anymore.
Oh, that's tough.
It's a promise, obviously made out of love, trying to comfort her daughter.
Yeah.
But it's just devastating knowing it was the last promise she'd make to her.
Yeah. And to really get why that promise was made and everything that happened next, we need to understand the backstory. This difficult custody situation between her parents.
Right. So Lauren and Jeffrey Wolfenbarger, their relationship started back in summer 2007. Lauren got pregnant unexpectedly. And despite it being a brief relationship, she was, ready to embrace being a mom.
But things get complicated because by the time Lily was born in May 2008, Jeffrey had actually married someone else, Renee King.
Right, I saw that.
They'd known each other since high school, apparently. And Renee already had 3 kids herself. So right away, you've got a pretty complex family setup.
Yeah, definitely challenging. And then, just 3 months after Lily was born, this judge, Michael Higgins, awarded joint custody.
3 months old.
Yeah. And Lauren and her lawyer, they strongly argued against it. They brought in experts who said, look, a baby that young, it's just not good for them to be constantly moving between homes.
Which makes sense developmentally.
So given that opposition and the expert advice, why would a court grant joint custody so early? It makes you wonder.
It's a critical question.
Right.
Sometimes there's this tension, right, between wanting both parents involved and what's best for a very young child's stability. But the transcript suggests something more concerning here, specifically about Judge Higgins's behavior.
Yeah.
Reportedly, he just dismissed the expert testimony. He was apparently sarcastic towards Lauren, even, hostile, calling her obsessed for checking on Lily.
Wow.
Making these really insensitive comments, like suggesting she should have adopted a baby without a dad involved if she didn't want this.
What does that kind of behavior from a judge even suggest about the fairness of it all?
Well, it paints a picture of a real power imbalance, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And maybe a lack of regard for Lauren's concerns for the expert opinions.
Yeah. And the transcript makes it clear Lauren became really afraid of Judge Higgins, of the whole family court system.
Understandably.
And that fear, it made her hesitant. Even when she started having serious worries about Lily's safety, she was afraid to push back too hard on the custody order, afraid she might lose Lily altogether.
And that fear is it's such a central part of this story, isn't it? It shows how a parent's instinct to protect their child can get completely undermined by fear of the system itself.
Yeah, the system that's supposed to help.
Exactly. It makes you think, how do we make sure parents feel safe enough to actually voice these critical concerns without worrying about, retaliation?
It's a huge question. So the transcript then draws this really stark contrast between Lily's 2 homes.
Right.
Lauren's place, where she lived with her parents too, sounds loving, supportive, stable. Lily's baking with her grandparents. She's into her faith, singing along to Glee, just thriving.
Happy little girl.
Yeah. And then there's Jeffrey and Renee's home, described as volatile, chaotic.
Yeah, that's the picture painted. And sadly, it seems Lily was often left mostly in Renee's care because Jeffrey was working.
Okay.
And the transcript suggests Renee might have been feeling some resentment about that caring for Lily, who wasn't her biological child, on top of her own 3 kids.
That's a tough dynamic in blended families sometimes.
It is. And Renee had her own struggles, too. Starting March 2010, she apparently developed severe back pain.
Right, the bulging disc.
Yeah, an MRI showed a bulging disc, and she started taking strong pain medication. The report suggests her reliance on those meds increased over time.
Which likely added to the stress, right?
Yeah.
The marriage problems, childcare.
Absolutely. And you have to wonder about the impact of, significant pain medication use on someone's ability to care for kids, especially young ones.
It's a factor, definitely. And it's around this time that warning signs really start to emerge, according to the transcript.
Yeah. Lily starts resisting the visits more and more.
Those cries, the reluctance to go.
Exactly. That kind of consistent resistance from a little kid, it usually means something's wrong, doesn't it? Should ring alarm bells.
It really should. And then there were physical signs. A mark on her neck in April 2010. Lauren and her parents thought it looked like a cigarette burn. And then bruises, recurring bruises, every time she came back from her dad's.
And Lauren started documenting this, taking pictures.
Yes, exactly. Which is smart, right? Trying to keep a record. But Jeffrey, his explanations were always, oh, she's clumsy, kids get bumps and bruises, basically dismissing it.
Which is such a common, difficult thing. How do you tell the difference between normal kid stuff and something more sinister? Especially when one parent is downplaying it.
Right. And adding to all this instability, Jeffrey and Renee's own relationship was falling apart.
Yeah, they actually separated briefly in October 2010.
Renee even got a protection order, and Jeffrey filed for divorce.
Yes, but then, really quickly, they got back together, even though things were still apparently very volatile between them.
That kind of chaos must have been awful for Lily.
Absolutely. Constant conflict, instability. It's incredibly stressful for a child.
Yeah.
So Lauren and her parents, they're getting more and more worried.
Understandably.
They hired an investigator trying to get proof of the injuries. Lauren even talked directly to Renee.
What happened there?
Well, Renee apparently said she loved Lily, and they supposedly talked about changing the custody arrangement somehow. But, given everything else going on, how reliable were Renee's words?
That's the hard part, assessing that.
Especially when you learn this really alarming detail. Renee's own mother had apparently removed her other grandchildren from Renee and Jeffrey's house.
Wow, because she was worried about Renee's ability to care for them.
Exactly. That's a huge red flag, right, from her own mother. But it seems like it didn't lead to any intervention from, say, Child Protective Services or the court.
Why wouldn't it? That seems like such clear signal.
It's deeply troubling. It could be, communication breakdowns between agencies, maybe people not realizing how serious the family's concerns were.
Or maybe underestimating them.
Possibly. We also know Renee went to her doctor, went to the ER around late October, early November, complained about being tired, stressed, falling, the back pain.
Which could be legitimate medical issues.
Of course. But in the context of everything else, it adds to this worrying picture of someone maybe not coping well.
So the investigator gathered findings, gave them to Lauren's attorney. They hoped this would be enough finally to petition for full custody.
Right. But that fear of Judge Higgins, his potential reaction, it just loomed too large. It actually stopped them from taking immediate legal action.
That's devastating, the fear of the judge himself preventing action to protect the child.
It really highlights that chilling effect we talked about, when people perceive bias or risk retaliation from the court.
And Lauren tried to get Lily checked out herself, right, the Friday before.
Yeah, November 19th.
Yeah.
She wanted her pediatrician to see the injuries, examine Lily, but the office was closed for the day.
Oh, another missed chance. It's just layer upon layer.
It really is. And that last evening, before everything happened, it sounds so bittersweet.
Decorating the Christmas tree early.
Yeah. Lauren and her parents let Lily help, trying to create this happy moment. Took pictures of her in her Christmas dress. Then later, watching Toy Story 3, Lily falls asleep in her mom's arms.
Just a peaceful, happy kid. No idea what was coming.
And then the next day, November 20th, Lily crying again, just like before. Don't make me go.
It's just awful to imagine, and Lauren hands her over to Jeffrey for the last time, not knowing.
The timeline after that is just chilling. Jeffrey drops Lily off with Renee around 9:45 in the morning.
Okay.
By noon, Renee's calling Jeffrey, says Lily's having a temper tantrum. And remember, Renee was likely taking those strong pain meds.
Right. That's a crucial piece.
Then, just over 2 hours later, maybe around 2:15 p.m., the 911 call comes in. Lily isn't breathing.
Oh, my God.
Emergency responders get there, find Lily unresponsive. At the hospital, doctors see bruises on her forehead, behind her ear.
And Jeffrey initially told Lauren something else.
Yeah, he told Lauren that Renee had fallen on Lily. Misleading, to say the least. The reality was so much worse.
They couldn't save her.
No. Despite everything they tried, Lily was pronounced dead at 3:27 p.m.
And the aftermath. Renee's story kept changing.
Immediately. Her statements were inconsistent right from the start. First, she said she dropped Lily in the shower. Then she said she fell on her again while trying to get help.
Which just didn't add up, given the injuries.
Not at all. The medical examiner's report was definitive. It was ruled a homicide.
So homicide.
The autopsy showed at least 20 separate blows to Lily's head, inflicted with some kind of object.
Yeah.
It was absolutely clear this was no accident.
And Renee was arrested.
The same day Lily died.
Understandably, this caused a huge public outcry, especially when people heard about Judge Higgins's earlier behavior.
Yeah, there were protests. A formal complaint was filed against him with the Judicial Tenure Commission, the JTC. That's the body that investigates judges, right?
Exactly. They look into allegations of misconduct. They can recommend discipline, even removal.
So what happened with the JTC complaint against Higgins?
Well, despite the public anger, despite the serious questions about his conduct, the JTC eventually dismissed the complaint.
Dismissed it. So no accountability there, it seems.
It raises real questions about judicial oversight, doesn't it?
It certainly does. And Lauren's attorney later expressed regret, admitting that the fear of Judge Higgins retaliating had stopped them from acting sooner, more aggressively.
It just highlights how trapped they felt.
It really does. Now, initially, Jeffrey actually defended Renee publicly.
Really? Even after?
Yeah, said he believed her story about falling, mentioned she was hysterical, seeking treatment. But as her trial went on and more evidence came out,
He changed his tune.
dramatically,
Yeah.
he ended filing for divorce, said she was dead to him.
So Renee's trial was in February 2012.
Yes, and the jury didn't take long. Deliberated for just 2 hours, apparently.
And the verdict.
Guilty of murder, which meant an automatic sentence. Life in prison, no chance of parole.
Did she appeal?
She did, but her appeal was denied, so the conviction stands.
The transcript also mentioned Lauren filed a civil suit against Jeffrey.
That's right, alleging negligence that he shouldn't have left Lily with Renee, knowing her instability, the reported drug use. She sought financial damages.
Do we know how that turned out?
The transcript doesn't say what the final outcome of that lawsuit was, unfortunately.
But the impact of all this.
Yeah.
It's immense. Lauren, dealing with unimaginable grief.
She turned that grief into action, didn't she? Became a really strong advocate for child safety, trying to prevent this from happening to other kids.
Her strength is incredible.
It really is. And her determination to honor Lily by fighting for other vulnerable children. It's powerful. This whole case is just such a stark, awful reminder.
Of needing to see the warning signs.
Yes, and acting on them. And it highlights potential failures in the systems meant to protect kids' legal system, social services, and just the devastating cost of inaction.
So for you listening to this, what are the main takeaways? I mean, Lily's story really drives home how vital it is to be vigilant, right? To recognize those potential signs of endangerment.
Absolutely. And to support people who raise concerns. To act decisively when a child might be at risk.
It forces us to ask that tough question, what needs to change?
Yeah.
Systemically, I mean. In our courts, in our support systems, to make sure kids are better protected.
Right. How do we ensure concerns are taken seriously, acted on before it's too late?
And maybe, what role do we all play as individuals in our communities, advocating for change, making sure these lessons aren't forgotten?
Yeah. It's a heavy thing to think about, but really essential.